Today on Locked On Canadiens, the Habs look better than they have in weeks. Is this a turnaround?
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to episode 1177. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit fanduel.com to get started. My name is Laura Sab, also known as the Active Stick, and I'm joined by the wonderful Ian Boisvert, also known as Maybe It's Ian. Ian, the Habs maybe could have won that game, but they played better than they have in weeks. Is that how are you feeling tonight about the Habs?
Good catch. Yeah. I think, I agree. I think they played really well. There's still some things that are concerning in their game that have been there since maybe the beginning of the year or parts of last year. And, we'll get into all that as we break down the game. But I think generally that's the takeaway I had as well, that they played their opponent pretty tough. I thought the first period was great. Second period, not so good. Third period was a toss up and it goes to overtime and they get scored on within seconds on a play that, what do? You just tip your cap. The guy came in and put a great shot on net. So yeah, I feel good about the effort, but a win would have been nice instead of just a moral victory.
Yeah, but I think, the key to that was, I think throughout the first period, I kept feeling, Dustin Wolf was ruining my life, right? And it's been a while since we've had that. It's been a while since we've had that experience where the Habs are buzzing or the Habs are in the offensive zone for sustained periods of time and it's really a goalie or they're getting goal lead, right? So I think that to me, that set the tone for the rest of the game for me. So I felt like I was kind of looking at it through a more optimistic lens, not rose colored, but optimistic. And that's, and it's natural for the opponents to adjust in the second period. But what I did like was instead of letting the game get out of hand and it turning into an extremely lopsided game for the rest of the night, the Habs were able to bring it back in the third period. Yes, there were some dicey periods, there were some dicey moments. I still saw certain, defensive zone errors or mistakes or problems, I'm going to say. And, it's not like every player played perfectly, but I thought the Canadiens responded in the way that you would want them to. It's a start. Like, I want to see more of this. I want to see them build on this in the future.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely a lot of things to build off of in a game like this. The power play, while it only scored once, which I feel like is kind of silly to say because hey, it scored. The first unit I thought was getting good looks as they kept getting more opportunities. The second unit ultimately is the one that breaks through with Gallagher somehow being left alone in front of the net. He had a day and a half to shoot that puck, and he made a good play, being really patient in front of Wolf. When we broke this game down in the weekly forecast, the goaltending was something I keyed in on. Was Dustin Wolf is off to a really great start this year. That the Canadiens they have not gotten over 30 shots in a game more than once. They did it one time, and they didn't do it against Calgary. They just didn't get enough rubber at Dustin Wolf, and it's saying something because after the first period they had 17 shots and they barely got midway through 20. I think they ended with 23, 24 or something like that. So they just, again, we're still in search of that elusive 60-minute effort. I don't know that we're going to get it anytime soon. The other stat that I've been watching is the giveaways. This is the third straight game with over 20 giveaways in a game to Calgary's 11. There's not, you're not going to get many shots when you're putting the puck on your opponent's stick more often than not, right? Like, it's not like it was 21-20. It was 21-11. That's just it. You're handing your opponent the puck so often. And I think I don't see a ton of people picking up on that we all blame the defensive structure. We all blame the hybrid, structure. But once they get the puck, they just immediately put it on their opponent's stick. So it's there's definitely some stuff to build on, but a lot of the same stuff I'm seeing that is still concerning, and it's nothing that like coaching can't fix the giveaways. The players just need to execute.
Right. And we talked a bit about that yesterday. And I'm so glad that you're noting this. I know I make fun of you a lot of the time for being a nerd and being so over prepared. But I do find it very illuminating because sometimes it's just something where you think, all right, this is an NHL team. They should not be doing this as much. But you remember that they're essentially a bunch of prospects that are playing, right? A bunch of rookies that are playing. They're not, most of them are not full-time NHLers. And then the ones who are, they're kind of, they're building up their the bad habits are or sort of I'm going to call them infectious because I couldn't think of a better word to say.
Yeah.
But you're looking at a mistake and game 1 David Savard is not making that mistake. Game 12 or this was 12, right?
Yeah.
Game 12 David Savard is making that mistake along with the rookies, right?
Right.
So you're seeing rub off. That's the word I was looking for. The bad habits are rubbing off on the veterans. So that's never a good sign, right? So that's
Right.
not something that you want to see. And so I think it's worth keeping note of things like that. And later in this episode, we are going to talk about them having a session with a face-off guy. I called it hiring a face-off guy, but I didn't know what else to call it. They brought some guy in to help them with face-off. Some guy that they should probably have on speed dial, I'm going to say. But really, when you're noting all those little things, I think it kind of adds up to things that are fixable, right? It seems contradictory where, you're pulling these stats that are negative stats, but they're all things that are surmountable, right? They're all things that Canadians can practice, improve upon, bring in a guy, bring in, one of the development people, bring in, I don't know, have Vinny Lecavalier back on the ice with them or, MPP back on the ice with them. So, I'm looking at this team, and we are going to get into a little bit more about the game. I want to talk about Lane Hutson for a little bit as well later in this episode. But I just kind of want to talk about what happened when that goal was disallowed. Like Brendan Gallagher's second goal, Josh Anderson was offside, and it felt like for a moment Calgary was pressing, and Calgary kind of was able to take advantage of a deflation in the Canadiens' momentum.
Yeah. No, and we've seen the inverse of that with this team, right? Where a disallowed goal the other way kind of sparks them in some kind of comeback. We saw it in the Washington game. Ultimately, they didn't end up coming all the way back, but that's the idea, right? Is that those moments can be turning points if you allow them to be, both from a negative and a positive standpoint. Montreal doesn't get that goal. They stay up only one. They don't get the insurance marker. And then Calgary just kept pressing. It's unfortunate. It was the right call, right? And I could kind of see it as the play was developing when he went over the line backwards. I went, I don't know that he had the puck because that's the rule. If he has the puck while he's going over backwards, it's fine. But he didn't. He didn't touch the puck until both feet were very clearly on the other side of the blue line. Now we can argue, did it have any bearing on the play? Maybe. These offside challenges have become very just get out of jail free cards. I don't really love what they've become, but you can thank Matt Duchene for that. I
do like a coach who uses it though. That's the thing.
Yeah. If it's there, use it. I don't have any issues with coaches doing it so long as it's not a preseason game, Marty. It's a tool to get your team back into a game. It's just as effective as a timeout, and it comes with the benefit of potentially taking a goal off the board. Now, if you mess up, you better have a good penalty kill because you get screwed that way. Now it doesn't cost you your timeout; it costs you 2 minutes in the box. What did you think before we jump into the second segment? What did you think of the decision to put Dvorak out on the ice in overtime?
I thought it didn't I don't think that was the reason they lost, right?
No.
I would not have done that, but I feel like he was rewarding him for a previous game where he played well.
He played well in this one too.
Yeah. You get in line and you get the ice time, right? That's what I felt that was. So
I don't have an issue with it at all.
Okay.
I think he played a great game. You're putting him out there to win the draw. You think that and actually we'll get into it later on, but you think he gives you the best chance to win that draw. Montreal doesn't have he's their only really good left-handed, faceoffman. Is that a thing? Center iceman. So, I get it from Marty St. Louis' standpoint, right? It's not the same as putting out what like Deno and Byron and those guys the first overtime shift. So it just didn't go the right way, right? He actually won the draw. They just didn't pick the puck up. So
Yeah.
it is what it is. There are a lot of fans blaming Marty for that decision. I have no issue with that.
No, and that's the thing. Like that's why it's like that's not the reason they lost the game. Like, what are
Correct.
you going to do? We are going to talk a little bit about the game. Who was good, who was bad, and I do. It's been a while since we've done Lane Hutson feelings, and we are about to do that, and that's coming up in just one moment. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks, you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. With PrizePicks, you can win money as your favorite players collect points. Think, Cole Caulfield can have 50 goals. You can pick more on Cole in your PrizePicks entry and turn your predictions into cash. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. I'm going to tell you that again. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. All right. So I wanted to talk about Kirby Dach as well. I didn't say that before the break because I didn't want to. And on a down note, I don't think Kirby Dach has been playing badly as much as I think Kirby Dach has been playing underwhelmingly.
Yeah, he has his moments where you see the Kirby Dach that we're hoping to see come through. You see it when he's trying to back check to steal a puck. He does that effectively. You see it a couple times in this game where he's coming down the center of the ice through the slot and he has really great hands. And maybe he's doing a little too much instead of just shooting or dishing the puck and he's trying to make the perfect move. But the fact that we're seeing those skills on display is encouraging from him, right? We knew, and we're going to sound like a broken record here. We knew there was a long on ramp for him to get up to speed. What do you make of him not playing center? Is it just, the Canadiens trying to balance their lineup a little bit, or like, do they still see him as the number 2 center on this team? I'm confused as to why they're playing him on the wing at this point.
I think they're trying to find his comfort zone.
Yeah.
That's what I think. And I think either way, like until he's fully back, he's fully mentally and physically ready, I think you're not going to be able to tell what you've got in there, right? And I also wonder if they're doing that to see if he's valuable enough on the wing that you can move up a guy, because the Canadiens do kind of have a lot of centermen, right? They've got a couple in Laval. They've got a couple on this team that maybe are playing on lines they shouldn't be on. So, I think that's kind of where they're trying to go with this. I just think they're trying to figure out which position is going to bring out the best Kirby Dach. And then again, the outside possibility where they don't see him as a center because they see someone else there and they want to see if they can have him on the wing. But I do feel that they're going to bring him back to center at some point. I do feel like his long-term position on this team is going to be at center.
Yeah, not only for him, but for the Canadiens. Their whole rebuild is kind of built around the concept that he's going to be, second fiddle to Nick Suzuki down the middle. If not, we're kind of banking on Michael Hage to take out that role. And that's, pushing the core of this rebuild back until he's ready to go. So,
which is going to be a while. He's doing
absolutely
amazing in college right now, but he's not ready for the NHL.
No, definitely not. And I think, I still believe that Kirby Dach can be that guy. I find it puzzling that they still have him on the wing, especially with, and this is a guy I kind of wanted to talk about. Alex Newhook is not playing well.
He was doing so well, and then they pushed him into a place he doesn't belong.
Yes, we've seen the Alex Newhook at center experiment before. It doesn't work.
And
when
then
they acquired him, when they acquired him, they said he can play both center and wing. I say when you have someone who can play center and wing, you have a wing. You don't have a center. Um, you know, I think he's getting crushed out there a lot of the time, and even when he is getting the puck in situations, like he had an opportunity tonight, and it's just rotten luck. He fanned on it. On another one of those Jake Evans passes that just kind of took forever to get to where it was going and still got there, and nobody knew it got there. So that's a guy I'm kind of watching for a rebound at some point, because the whole thing of having Suzuki and Caulfield on one line kind of falls apart if the second line isn't able to carry the mail for a little bit. Are you as concerned about Newhook's play as I am? It seems like he's definitely struggling right now.
I feel like they're doing him dirty because we
Yeah.
saw him on the wing and he was great. He was fantastic. We kept praising him on nights when we weren't praising anyone else. So I think it's tough. I think they need to put him back where he's good. But I really like that you said like whenever a player can play wing or center, you have a wingman, because that is exactly who you have. You know, if you're a center, that's it. You're a center. Nobody's going to play you anywhere else. And
Right.
so that's why I'm a little bit concerned about this Kirby Dach thing too, a little bit. But I'm not concerned about Newhook. I just want them to return him to his rightful place, because
Yeah.
he provides a lot of value when he's playing on the wing. And I think, we saw a new side to him, and we saw confidence in him that we had not seen in the past.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, did you have any more points on Newhook?
Not so much Newhook, but just from an offensive standpoint, well, an all around standpoint, the expected goals in this game for the Canadiens were actually quite good. First line was at 73%, second line was 47.5%, and the third line was 74.4. So those are strong numbers from those lines. The fourth line didn't even register on natural stat trick because it didn't
It
play
didn't
enough in
play.
5-on-5. So I again, like, I think the effort was good tonight. They're having a hard time finishing right now. They'll it's only a little bit longer before Line is back. I know it seems kind of odd, but we're
Yeah, we're
slowly
already in
approaching that.
November.
Yeah, and who knows if Joshua Waugh gets called up and gets placed in a top six role to kind of balance that out. Maybe it allows Dach to move back to center on the second line, Newhook to the wing, Slav back up to the first line. Like it's obviously an incomplete lineup up front. So, but we want to talk about Lane Hutson.
Yes, I
What
wanted
did
to
you
talk
see in
about the
his game?
defense, actually.
Yeah,
I thought Kaiden Guhle and Lane Hutson in particular played really well tonight. I
yeah,
know that they have been. I know that they are our two reliable defensemen where we're like, okay, they're okay. And it's just, to me, like, the question that I wanted to ask about Lane Hutson is that he's getting a lot of criticism for not putting up enough points and goals. But every time I see him on the ice, he looks like he's better than all the others.
yeah,
And that's the
yeah.
thing that, like, he has these moves that even commentators who begrudgingly talk about the Habs will, like, shower him with praise.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before he starts putting these in the net. And again, there was another instance. I don't remember who it was, but he put another goal on somebody's stick and they just didn't put it in. Right? Like we're watching Lane Hutson lose points because the guys that he's passing the puck to aren't scoring. That's going to change, I think. I think I'm so excited for Hutson and Line to play on the same team because I think that they're just a match made in heaven. Because like we talked about, who was it that we had on? I'm sorry, I can't from Elite Prospects.
Oh,
David St. Louis. I
David
got
St.
it.
Louis.
David
How
St.
can we
Louis.
forget our friend
I see his
David?
face. I couldn't remember the name. That's on me. There's a lot going on right now. He had said that sometimes, Line likes to carry the mail. He likes to be the guy that transitions the puck. Sometimes he likes to be the guy that slides in coverage and, is open for an opportunity. Lane Hutson being on the ice with him is going to allow him to do both of those at different times. So I think I'm just kind of salivating over the idea of seeing the two of them play together. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later. But I every time I watch Lane Hutson, he's doing something that I still can't believe a 20-year-old is doing. He still hasn't played 20 games in the NHL.
I think he has a total of, I want to say, 14 games.
14. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's right.
And he has
He's
9
not, it's not just offensively. Like he had a back check tonight where he turned the puck over and then he immediately decided, no, I didn't. And he tried to get it back and he did get it back. He stopped them on their break-in. So I think he's a lot stronger defensively than maybe, some people give him credit for. The sky's the limit for this kid. It's super exciting that he's doing all this at 20. I can't imagine what he's doing at 23, 24.
Yeah. And I am super, super excited about him. But I think overall, the defense as a whole played better.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you're seeing the source of like, oh, the Canadians look better, right? The Canadians were in the Calgary zone as opposed to their own zone. And I think, you keep pointing it out because it is true, is that like everything starts from the defensive zone. If they play
Yeah.
better in there, they get the puck out. They get the puck out, they have a chance at like creating offense. So I thought, individually, those two players looked really good, but overall, even though there were moments that were not ideal, and we can't ask for too much at this point, I'm just looking for steady improvement, no matter
Yeah.
how slow, no matter how incremental. But yeah, like I really thought that made a difference. So I really hope that their next game, I know it's against a much tougher opponent in New Jersey, but I really hope they take that and kind of build on those habits, even if they don't win. I didn't feel at all like the Canadians lost. I was not at all disappointed when they
No.
lost because I thought the whole game overall was much better than we've seen in a while. And I do want to go into our next segment, but I wanted to talk a little bit about how, and on Insider Trading tonight, they talked about some of the rule changes or some of the GM meetings and some things that they want to propose. And I thought there were a couple of really interesting ones there. So I want to talk about that tomorrow. So please make sure you are tuned in, subscribed, listening to our episode tomorrow, because I really do want to talk about it. Like there was a lot of
Yeah.
meat in that segment. But in our next segment, we are going to talk about the face-offs. Like the Canadians had a session with a face-off guy. They literally practice face-off on purpose, and we saw it pay off. So I want to talk a little bit about the importance of face-offs and all of that. And that's coming up in just one moment here on Locked On Canadiens. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit fanduel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's fanduel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so the Montreal Gazette reported that the Canadiens brought in a former NHLer to work with them on face-offs. This would be, I would say, they did that on Monday in practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're recording this on Tuesday night, but it's Wednesday by the time you're listening to this. So I think the really funny thing was that a lot of people were like, "Who?"
Yeah.
When they first talked about it. But I think the real meat in that was that the players afterwards commenting on how much it helped them. In particular, Nick Suzuki, who I love because he was really he took accountability, right? He was talking about how he can't be inconsistent. He's like, I can't be 30% or 60%. I have to be more consistent. I have to be, hovering around 50%, which is, kind of the best you can kind of hope for. So I thought it was really interesting that he alluded to the mental game, because face-offs is such a fundamental thing that you have to learn when you're a hockey player. You learn that when you're, just barely putting skates on. So the fact that it can fluctuate so much over the course of your career was really interesting. And I thought the mental aspect of it was really interesting. So what did you make of that? First of all, the Habs like bringing in someone to like practice face-offs.
Well, I think it's an admission that they know it's a part of their game that's lacking. They're pretty low in the standings as far as face-offs go. And if you're looking for immediate returns, they got them. They did well at the dot against Calgary, 55.9%. Suzuki went out there at 63%, Newhook at 29%. They need to get him out of center and back to the wing. Dvorak 68%, Evans 56%, Kapanen 20%. He's brand new. I can't imagine, that I bet he took 5 faceoffs and won one of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I think that's an improvement. However, Calgary is the 30th best faceoff team in the league, operating at 45.7%. So they didn't exactly match up against stiff competition at the dot. But I hope it's an opportunity for them to, get those reps under their belt, know what it feels like to win a lot of faceoffs, see a lot of faceoffs. For Nick, Suzuki is typically not very good at them. And he did particularly well. He was only behind Dvorak. And, we mentioned Dvorak starting overtime. He was rocking a 68% faceoff percentage. It makes a ton of sense that Marty would tap him to go out there for the faceoff. So I think, again, it's just an admission that they know it's an issue and they're working on it. But it's definitely going to be a work in progress. This isn't going to fix all of it. They have, a tough schedule ahead of them in just the next few games. Can they do it again? Can they go out there against New Jersey and at least go 50%, and then go do that against Toronto and try to go 50%? It's nice to get that win, but it's certainly not the end of this conversation.
So do we think we see this guy again? Marc Bureau is his name. I
hope so. I hope they keep him around, or at least, they use the drills that he was going through them with. It's you kind of sometimes run the risk of having too many cooks in the kitchen when you have all of these coaches, but that's in the salary cap world. That's how it seemed like Montreal can take advantage, right?
Yeah.
Is they can't use any more of their salary cap than anybody else can, but they can bring in specialists to help at practice. They can bring in skills coaches. So this is where they need to, really, really go after their development is by sparing no expense when it comes to this. We don't even know if they hired or paid this guy, to be honest, or if they just asked him to come out to practice for a day.
Yeah.
But maybe it's a sign of things to come in the way that they treat their practices and their development.
Yeah. And I do think, like, if they did pay him, I think it's really fun. Like, I don't know if there's any rules against it, but, like, bringing people in for a one-off or paying for a couple of sessions with a particular specialist of some sort. So I do think it's an interesting and intriguing idea. And we do have a mailbag question about that. So speaking of that, please make sure that you send us mailbag questions this week. But before we sign off and let you know how to do all of that, we have our trivia.
Yeah, let me pull that up. So remind everybody of yesterday's question.
Which is an absolute sicko question.
Yeah, it was. That's on me. I was feeling the moment because the Canadiens hadn't beaten the Penguins in a long time. So the question was, Montreal's last win over the Pittsburgh Penguins came on March 14th, 2023. Who scored the game-winning goal? The answer was Anthony Richard.
I did not get this one.
No, I don't think anybody did, because if you did, man, I would think you cheated, honestly. Anthony Richard, he scored from Barron and Joel Edmondson. Barron found him on the other side of the ice on the Penguins blue line, and he came in and he just beat the goalie with a really nice shot. Short stint in Montreal for Anthony Richard, but he has left his mark. He is now immortalized in the Locked On Canadiens trivia extended universe. All right. Today's question, name that guy. Montreal's next game is against New Jersey, so that's the direction we are headed. Boston, Tampa, New Jersey, Montreal, San Jose, New Jersey. I'll do that again. Boston, Tampa, New Jersey, Montreal, San Jose, New Jersey.
All right. If you know the answer, you know how to get in touch with us. You can also send us mailbag questions with these modes. I'll start real quick by saying our email address is lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. We love getting mail from you, whether it's a mailbag question, answer to trivia, or just thoughts and observations, experiences you've had. Send them to us. We're also at Locked On Canadiens on Instagram. We're at LO_Canadiens on Twitter. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Subscribe, tell your friends, rate us, etc., etc. You'll find me on Twitter at The Active Stick. You'll find my co-host at Maybe It's Ian. We want to thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you tomorrow.